Snowland's Fae is a collective name for a bunch of different types of entities, some human-like, while others cannot be said to have any human features. In today's video, I'll be talking about Fae, but especially about Linnea and augury birds. There's a lot of references to Slavic folklore, so I'll be going into that as well. I hope you enjoy! Changelings. There's a popular myth about Fae that has truly become a part of Not-Cry folklore. The myth says that parents of Fae would switch their own child with a human baby. The Fae children that got switched are called changelings. This is actually based on real-life folklore by the same name. In much European folklore, changelings are supernatural beings that imitate the appearance of a human child to replace them. Typically, it's believed that fairies, trolls, or demons are the perpetrator in these cases. It is said that these creatures would find human children more beautiful or appealing, and thus would take it and replace it with either their own child, a changeling, or a wooden doll. Parents would notice that their child was a changeling if they didn't grow or if they had strange features like body hair or long teeth. But it could also be the behavior that made people question if their child was really theirs. These legends basically describe Linnea's life perfectly. She was born to Fae parents, but they thought she'd be better off being raised by a human couple, and so they switched their child with a human child. The human child was raised by Linnea's real parents, while Linnea got raised by human parents. However, Linnea would eventually learn that she was different from her peers, especially with the crystal marks on her body and the wings on her head, but also her habits and quirks. After telling her human parents, they left her at Speranza in Not-Cry to find their biological child. Fortunately, Linnea got accepted by the other children in the conch gang, and even became their leader for a while due to her intelligence and knowledge about nature. Augury birds. Of course, Linnea always wondered about her past, but she was apprehensive about investigating it. This is because of a song that she remembered from her Fae parents, telling her that the life of a Fae was sorrowful. Despite that, she tried to go to the tundra where the Fae live, but she did not discover much, and the forest only made her uneasy. However, in her story quest, we discover that the real reason her Fae parents swapped her with a human child has a lot to do with the type of Fae that she is, an augury bird. Augury birds are born with prophetic visions that allow them to see their own future, all the way until the end of their lives. This means that nothing they do really comes as a surprise to them, as they know how it will end, regardless of what they do. In order to delay Linnea's prophetic abilities from developing, her Fae parents decided to only have her live around humans. That's because the ability develops whenever augury birds are around each other. That ties into the way Linnea found out about this ability, Selino. In Linnea's story quest, she and the Traveler participate in a festival in Not-Cry where animal companions face off against each other. One of the other participants is a girl named Selino. Traveler overheard her saying some strange things about Linnea and became a bit wary of her. But later we discover that Selino is also an augury bird, and not just any augury bird. She's Linnea's older sister. As I said earlier, the prophetic ability of augury birds develops when they're around others of their kind. So when Linnea touched Selino, her ability rapidly developed. Upon touching her, Linnea went into a long dream about her future. She saw events that she would go through and even witnessed her own death. As you can imagine, that's not the most pleasant ability to have. Selino definitely is not happy about having it, and it generally gave her quite a pessimistic outlook on life. In fact, she deeply envied Linnea, because Linnea was able to live, in, at least in Selino's view, a carefree life with her human parents. Selino, on the other hand, already had her prophetic ability, and nothing could be done for her anymore. She definitely views the ability as a curse, and started to resent Linnea because she can live without the curse. She considered Linnea to be blissfully ignorant, and even wished that Linnea would understand how it felt to have the prophetic ability. However, after actually talking to Linnea, Selino discovered that Linnea was not ignorant, but just dealing with things differently. Although she may have been unaware of what an augury bird was, she was fully aware that she's a Fae, and that she's different from others. Even after witnessing her own fate, Linnea stayed optimistic. While knowing the outcome of every situation made Selino's life miserable, Linnea made the most of every decision either way. A quote from Selino shows their two different perspectives. We can see crossroads in the flow of fate, immutable future events that all paths will lead to. While Selino focused on the end, the future events, Linnea focused on the paths and crossroads, making the most of everything, regardless of the outcome. Linnea's perspective surprised Selino, and she realized that her impression of her sister was wrong the whole time. At the end of the quest, the two reconcile and decide to become family again. Selino even invites her to come visit their parents, which Linnea agrees to. Luckily for this changeling, she returned to her own parents, and so did the human child. Still, I'm sure it will take Linnea some time to adjust to knowing she's an augury bird and having these prophetic visions. Other fae types. In this video, I discussed changelings and augury birds, but that's not the only type of fae. Most of the fae types are based on real-life folklore, especially Slavic folklore. In-game, we've only seen a few types so far: augury birds, lantern fae like Flins, and a Jack Frost like Linnea's companion Lumi. But when Selino told us about the types of fae, there were 3 kinds she said to be less common, which are augury birds, lantern fae, and sirens. Although the first 2 both have a playable character, the third one does not. However, one of Linnea's voice lines, particularly the one about Vojenitsa, actually hints at her being a siren. She says,
"Audiences at the opera house go crazy for her, completely unaware that all they're hearing is the echo of the ocean waves. I'm sure she has her reasons, but I can sense an allure hidden deep within her singing voice that, if ever unleashed, would bewitch everyone within earshot and sentence them to certain doom."
This clearly references sirens, who are known for seducing seafarers with their captivating songs. They're said to lure their victims into the ocean to drown them, which corresponds exactly with what Linnea is saying about Vojenitsa. Her name is also a Russian word used for a type of water entity from Slavic folklore named Rusalka, which is also linked to singing. Most stories about the Rusalka also claim they lure men into the water to drown them, similar to sirens. But it also seems like Rusalka are quite benevolent and less provoked in other stories. I think she'll definitely be an interesting character. Besides the less common fae, there are way more types of fae that we basically know nothing about yet. The most common ones are Vila, Domovoy, Leshy, Volkotlak, and Snedjovic. All of these fae types share names with Slavic folklore yet again, and I'll briefly explain all of them. Sorry if my pronunciation is off on any of these, by the way, I really tried my best. The Vila is similar to Rusalka in the sense that they are both nature spirits. However, where Rusalka are water fairies, Vila can also be associated with other aspects of nature, like air or forest, but also with animals or weather phenomena. In some stories they are benevolent, while in others they're vengeful. Domovoy are household spirits that protect certain families, specifically pets and children. Their behavior seems to change based on how the family behaves. It's said that their appearance and personality resembles an ancestor of the family, so they're intrinsically connected to the ancestry and the house. Also, they're said to be able to see the future and foretell future events in people's lives, which they indicate by making either happy or sad noises. Leshy are seen as forest guardians who have the ability to shapeshift into animals. It's said that when you anger a Leshy, it makes you get lost in the forest, and the only way to fix it is to make it laugh. But generally, it seems like the Leshy are tricksters who want to protect the forest from mistreatment by humans. Volkotlak seem to be similar to werewolves, as they are creatures that can transform into a wolf-like being. These Volkotlak are linked to vampires as well, and are said to suck the blood of their loved ones, which seems to be the version Genshin is going with. In the book A Brief History of the Pale Starborn, the ruler of all the Volkotlak is referred to as the Wise Blood Drinker, which could allude to this connection between Volkotlak and vampires. But the book also mentions 2 other types of Volkotlak, the Nihom Gartir and Cernarika, where the former is cow-like and the latter is wolf-like, which implies that Volkotlak might take the appearance of different animals besides just wolves in Genshin. Snegovik literally means snowman in Russian, but it seems like the fae is supposed to be a reference to a fairy tale where the snowman comes to life. It looks to be closely tied to New Year's celebrations in Russia. An NPC called Viliana, who is a Snegovik, says this is the most common fae type, and that they don't like the heat, which makes sense with their link to snowmen. In conclusion, there are a lot of different types of fae that are all based on different folklore. Linnea's kind is just one of many. I wonder if more of them will become playable characters besides the 3 we know about. But in any case, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a like and subscribe if you did, and let me know in the comments which fae type is your favorite. Bye bye!